Hi, Virginia. Welcome to the What's Your Next podcast.
Laura, I'm so thrilled to be back and chatting with you. Thanks
I
for having me.
I am so happy. I was just sharing pre-interview that I have memories of our conversation because you came with Solali, Deb, and you both were just chit-chatting, and it was just me as an outsider looking at a friendship of authors who deeply admire each other but deeply respected each other, and it was just so delightful. And this interview was recorded in the midst of COVID, which is a weird that your current book actually deals with. But Virginia, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been a writer I just figured this out, a published author for 27 years.
Oh my gosh. Congratulations.
I know. I'm starting to feel like I'm almost achieving crone status.
Yeah.
But of course, I started as a reader.
Yeah.
And I think that storytellers, that readers and writers are always in conversation. Partly through, of course, wonderful podcasts like this one. But I think writers start writing because they have something to say.
Yeah.
And, or we're trying to figure things out, sometimes both at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's not really until we get it on a page and then someone reads it and it sparks something in their thoughts or their feelings that connection is forged. And that's what I write for. And nothing makes me happier than when I hear from a reader or somebody comes up to me at a signing or heck, interacts with me on social media and goes, I heard what you were saying. I feel seen. I feel understood. And I'm just so lucky that I get to do this job. So I think I wrote probably 15 books for Harlequin back in the day.
Oh my gosh.
I wrote an entire romance fantasy series for Berkeley. I did contemporary romance series set on the North Carolina coast for Berkeley. And then the last several books have I've been digging into that connection between the books that I loved as a reader, that formed me as a reader, and coming back to them as an adult and seeing what they mean to me now, and never ever wanting to get in between someone else's experience of those books, but rather to share both what they meant to me then and how I have a different perspective on them now. So that's been Megan Jo, Beth and Amy, The Fairy Tale Life of Dorothy Gale, and now Anne of a Different Island.
Yeah, I love your Little Women retelling, like, or reimagining of them in this era. I think Little Women meant a lot to me because it was a book that I read, the first classic English book that I read. I grew up in Puerto Rico, so we read a lot of Shakespeare and stuff like that, but we also read Spanish classics. So it was like a mix. And this was the first book that I read that I felt myself seen, felt myself part of, want to be friends with these women and wanted to have companionship. When we think about classics, we think about books that are like, they're intimidating, they're overwhelming. And I have friends who are love classics and have delved into and introduced me to better ways to approach it. But Little Woman is the one book that I have reread multiple times. And I love that reimagining of them in this era. What would it be like?
It was interesting to me because when I was growing up, I wanted to be Jo.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a writer alive who at some point hasn't gone, I'm going to be Jo. One of the interesting things for me going back to that book was how you really just want to be part of the March family. You're almost like Lori hanging out, looking over the fence, going, invite me. I want to be part of this.
Yeah.
But the other thing that struck me as I dug into it now is that all four sisters actually present a valid way of navigating the world as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was one of the brilliant things about Greta Gerwig's movie.
Yeah.
Was that you saw aspects of them and went, that's what the Meg's approach to life is valid. And Amy's approach, take no prisoners approach to life is valid. And Beth's sweetness isn't weakness,
Yeah.
it's strength.
Yeah.
So I'm completely with you on the love. And I don't think of what I do as retelling so much as an homage.
Yeah.
It's really challenging when you do a retelling because you're taking on something that other people have a connection to the source material.
Yeah.
And you fiddle with that bond at your peril. And so the tricky thing sometimes can be, let's not break the glass, let's just twist it so we can see it from a different direction.
Yeah.
But yeah, and of course, when I did Anne of a Different Island, it was like, I'm not Canadian. This is going to be a hard sell. But Anne was huge for me.
Yeah.
And Gilbert was my first best book boyfriend.
Oh my gosh. I have a confession. I read multiple Anne of Green Gables, reimagining, retelling, respecific, but I have not read the source material. I've been told that I should read the source material. It is very clear that I love the source material. I don't know why I'm resisting, and maybe this is like Christmas gift for myself is just to read the source material because your book actually was like this is like the ultimate series that you just want to fall in love with it and you just want to just dive into it. And I think you gave people who are familiar with the source material, but they're not so intimately, like basically a calling card that you have to read this. Like you're gonna like this is actually really good material that even surely teenagers may feel really unacceptable, may feel outside odd outcasts who will love this book and will create TikTok challenges about it.
Well, thanks. Actually, this book is the first book in which the source material exists.
Yeah.
So when I did the retellings of the March sisters and they're talking about fictional characters, they talk about the sisters in Little Women, but they don't, I mean, they talk about the sisters in Pride and Prejudice,
Yeah.
but they don't talk about the sisters in Little Women because Little Women doesn't exist in that universe.
Yeah.
When I did the fairy tale life of Dorothy Gale, and it's hard to talk about this without spoilers, but again, L. Frank Baum and his book and that movie do not exist.
Yeah.
But when I did Anne of a Different Island, part of what I'm talking about is the importance of stories, how much they mean to us, how much they comfort us, how much they inspire us, how much they really show us the path ahead. And then also that fiction and real life don't always meet up in the ways that we think that they should.
Yes.
And Anne Gallagher, who is the American heroine of my novel, who lives on Mackinac Island, Michigan, wants to be Anne Shirley from Prince Edward Island.
Yeah.
And in some ways, her life follows along that path. She's a teacher. She aspires to be a writer. She has the perfect doctor boyfriend.
Yeah. Yeah. About that because that doctor boyfriend was just like maybe book boyfriends may not be the right ones you want to have. Just an FYI.
Well, I need you to read the Anne of Green, the Anne series,
Yes.
because you will get,
Yeah.
you will understand a
Yeah.
reference later in the book.
Yeah.
Zero in on.
Yes. So, talk to us ahead of a different island. What is elevator pitch? Just a little bit for listeners who may not be familiar with Anne of Green Gables or Anne of Different Island. Where is it at? Because it's sort of a unique island. They don't have cars.
Okay, so you lived in Chicago. I don't know if you ever took a trip up into Michigan to Mackinac.
I was in a COVID bubble, so I was.
Oh
Just,
my gosh, I'm so sorry.
I,
Well, then
I was
we
just,
probably should talk about that too with relation to this book.
yes.
So Mackinac Island has been a getaway for the wealthy in Chicago. I mean, it was originally a French fur trapping
Yeah.
island and very important to the Native Americans in that area. Then it became sort of a getaway for the rich and maybe not so famous.
Yeah.
But they made that gorgeous Grand Hotel. And for people who are into old romantic movies, Somewhere in Time was filmed there.
Oh.
What I wanted to leverage a little bit when I was looking for a way to talk about Anne Shirley and the power of imagination and the important.
Okay.
But what I wanted to do was sort of lean into the nostalgia and the comfort, because I don't think we live in comforting times right now.
Yeah.
And what was interesting to me was that you can go to Lucy Maud Montgomery's books, and not just the Anne series, but she's written some other really wonderful books. And you can get comfort, but they were not written during uneventful times.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's interesting in Anne, and that I think that the more recent television series, Anne with an E, which was on Netflix for a while, leaned into, was that her backstory. I mean, basically, she's an orphan
Yeah.
who is adopted out, almost purchased,
Yeah.
to a brother and sister who live on this rural island.
Yeah.
And they wanted a boy to work the farm.
Yeah.
And they end up with this skinny little imaginative girl.
Yeah.
But if you look at Anne's backstory, it's actually really difficult. If you look at the circumstances of her life and the setbacks, she faces some significant setbacks. And she's finds a way to cope with charm, with determination, and she's so funny because she can be very over dramatic. I actually did try to use some of that impulsiveness when I was thinking about my own character, Anne Gallagher. But I love her resilience. I think it's her imagination and her resilience, which are amazing. And then there's the nostalgia of that old time setting.
Yeah.
So what I was looking for wasn't the nostalgia of an sort of this old time nostalgia, but also the idea that somebody could face circumstances that were difficult in a time of change with a certain amount of resilience.
Yeah.
So Mackinac Island, look, I can actually get my way back there, was a playground of the well off. And then at some point, like after the automobile was introduced, it scared the horses.
Oh.
And so Mackinac Island decided that prohibited motor vehicle traffic on the island.
Yeah.
Now, they have a police and they have an ambulance and they have a fire truck and a couple utility trucks.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I thought they had these charming Victorian houses, which would have been from the original Anne's time. You can ride in carriages, which is part of the original Anne's time. The year-round population at Mackinac varies between 500 and 600, which is not. I wanted that limited community that like Prince Edward Island.
Yeah.
And interestingly, the two of the series that I wrote for Berkeley back in the aughts and the tens, one was a fantasy series called Children of the Sea, set on an island off the coast of Maine. One was the Dare Island series, set on an island off the coast of North Carolina. I think there's something about a small, relatively isolated community that, again, sort of forces the kind of connection that I'm really interested in exploring.
Yes.
So that was the reason for Anne of a Different Island and why it's set on Mackinac, Michigan. Plus, they make fudge.
They make fudge. They make horse-drawn curry, horses curry.
Horse-drawn carriage. We can do it.
Yeah. But I have to tell you, as someone who grew up in an island, I grew up in the Caribbean, grew up in Puerto Rico, which is an island. It's a U.S. colony. It's a little bit bigger than Mackinac Island, but there's something to be said about, as you mentioned, things about the island. We're a tight-knit community, even though there's millions of people know each other, people know each other's family. They ask, what's your last name? Who you're related to? What are your profession? The specifics. We are in everyone's business. We're nosy as fuck. and it's lovely. And it's just like a sense of community, which you lose when you're in the mainland, when you're actually neighbors don't help. Like in Puerto Rico, neighbors help each other. We all are helping each other out. It may not always be pleasant as someone who's growing up in the island because he has dreams of exploring the world and traveling and having this space of making it big and getting it out. And so I identify with Anne in the sense of getting out of the island at 18, very naive, very unsure how to handle it, how to make friends because you've been with the same people for 12 years in your school. So you kind of have, they already know you, they already have made an assumption. So you actually have to make new friends. In my case, I went to school, our class was 54 of us. And then I went to Syracuse, which is because it looked pretty on the pictures. I did not have a proper coat. I did not have the proper winter. I had no idea that snow will be there for 10 months out of the year. And yet I was like, okay, we're making it work. And I knew because one of the things I knew that I had to make it or break it, that I was like, I need to just, we're just going to figure this shit out. And that's the beauty of, and then figure out what to do after graduation, what to do, how do you stay in the mainland in some ways and try to be successful in your 20s where you just have no idea where you're supposed to be doing and you think you're supposed to know your whole life plan. And it's, and someone with anxiety, I don't have anxiety, but I have anxiety, and it reflects in very similar aspects of it. It's very difficult to manage life the way you're supposed to manage, and especially at 24. Like I can feel it. Like, and then you have COVID, which we got to talk about. This book is set in COVID, hope post COVID. So it is 2022, which fresh of the COVID mind. It's, yeah.
Well, when I was talking earlier about safe places to explore difficult
Yeah.
subjects, I think that there are, and I don't know if we were taping at the time, but we were
Yeah.
talking about writers and readers and connection. So, one of the things that has happened is I've heard from readers who came of age in a time of missed things. They
Yeah.
missed their graduations.
Yeah.
They missed they at a time when they thought they would be setting off, they're moving home with their families.
Mm-hmm.
Their relationships were either fast tracked or derailed by the isolation of COVID. And I thought it was interesting that there aren't a lot of stories. It's as if we've had a cultural amnesia.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if we're going to get COVID stories in 50 or 60 years, just like we see World War II stories now. Like maybe we'll have that. But I think in some ways, because it was traumatic, I think in some ways we're so scared to revisit. It's like readers like, there's COVID. Oh, I don't want to read this. And there's no, but there's actually something welcoming about the idea, the reminder of the time that we're alive, the time where we're just scrounging for toilet paper and then watching these shitty Netflix shows, and we're just a cultural touch point, and we're having Thanksgiving and Zoom and having major life events, and the fact that we say goodbye to our loved ones because we were in isolation. There's certain things that happen. And especially the generation, there are COVID kids, the COVID high school kids, the COVID kids who have may not have the same level of experimentation or willingness to take risks. There's a lot of divide. I'm an elder millennial, and there's a lot of conversation how the Gen Z is looking at the elder millennials and trying to understand our life. And we're like, because we lived through recession, we lived through wars, and 9/11, and it's very interesting to watch the Gen Z. Okay, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to drink. We're not going to make the mistakes you made, but there's something to be said about that. There's a very strong divide between what was my early youth, 20s, 30s, years old, and to my younger, like the younger generation who may not have those because they were stunted. They were just, they have different limitations that we did not have.
And another thing that's made a big difference too, I think, is the way we use social media and the way we are able to be connected.
Yeah.
either through our phones, through
Yeah.
FaceTime, through whatever, through texting. So what I wanted to do, I do want to say, I didn't set out to write a political novel. I don't think it is a political novel,
Yeah.
but I did want to say to my readers who came of age in a time of COVID that I see you.
Yeah.
And more importantly, I wanted to use that time. That's a trauma that we kind of know the ending of the story.
Yeah.
I mean, not that it's ended, but that we survive, right? Since I'm talking, I wanted to talk about resilience.
Yeah.
Since I wanted to talk about finding a way forward,
Yeah.
um, I thought that it's sort of a metaphor. So you'll notice that the book opens in April
Yeah.
of 2022 and it ends in 2025. And the reason for that is to, again, address times when we are divided or we feel isolated. And how do we find our way forward? There's a wonderful line in the original, at the end of the original Anne of Green Gables. This is not a spoiler because, hello, this book came out in 1908, where Anne has the Anne Shirley, the OG Anne, basically says, I saw my future and now there's a bend in the road.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to go around the corner and I don't know what I'll see. I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm going to find my way. And that's really that's the soul of the book for me.
Yeah.
So there are things that I do differently, obviously, since I'm setting classics in modern times and all of my heroines are older than their historical counterparts. They have sex. And
Yeah.
some, I did a statewide library event. I won't even say what state.
Yeah.
And the first question I got, and this was when the Little Women books came out, the
Yeah.
first question I got was, how do you reconcile having the daughters of a minister have premarital sex with the wonderful, pure original that was? And I swallowed hard so that I would not break out into someone singing, the only guy who could ever reach me was the son of a preacher man. And I just talked about how when you're in a book, you are following the characters along on their journey and you're in their shoes and you're seeing things through their eyes and they make choices. And then that lets you agree or disagree with those choices.
Yeah.
But you have more understanding and empathy with their choices because you're following them on their journey.
Yes. Uh, Absolutely correct. Perfect.
But wow,
Yes.
I had to think hard on that one. That was
It was a very diplomatic saying. Yes.
they're going to have sex. Just get over your old bad self and just not only sex, but good sex.
Yes. That was a major thing.
Oh, and that was okay. So that's another like letter I get,
Yeah.
which is, I think people are women. I get way more letters from young women than young men have are really uncertain about relationships or
Yeah.
even reluctant to enter into relationships. And I think that I wanted to sort of explore what it looks like to have choices and what kinds of things can drive your choices.
Yeah. Yeah, and this book actually deals with that because Anne is at a crossroads. She has a relationship, she's coming back home, and then she sees her childhood best friend who has settled in her Anne's mind too young and is already pregnant with multiple babies.
Well, she's actually only pregnant with
She's pregnant with
one.
one baby. She has two babies. She's got two children under three in no time, basically. And they're two or three. So Anne is okay, but that's you settle, which is very common for people like me who'll be like, okay, well, that's a settle. And her best friend telling her, no, the choice that I wanted. This is what I wanted to happen. We can't. I think social media made it very easy for us to judge other people's stuff. We may have judged them at our time, but social media makes it very easy to show like this reel of life, and you're like, okay, I'm going to judge your choices. I'm going to either like it or not, and I'll have a opinion about it, and then I'm going to tell you the opinion. We may not like in the past. We may not even tell you the opinion. We may just chat it with our group chat or our friends and stuff. But now we're just like, oh, we'll tell you.
Hello, stranger whose life
Hello,
I'm
stranger.
about to judge. Yeah,
Yeah.
another character in the book who was not Anne's best friend growing up,
Yeah.
but was a protege employee
Yeah.
and later partner of her dad. And he, there are two places in the book where he talks about labels.
Yeah. Oh, I love that conversation. Love that conversation so
So he has two conversations with her, and one is when she's trying to figure out what kind of animal are you, and then the other, and he doesn't judge.
yeah.
And then it comes out later, and I don't think there are any spoilers here, where the other side of him not judging others is he doesn't judge her,
Yeah.
that he takes things, people he walks with them where he finds them.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yes. Like I think in some ways Joe reflects more real aspect of it, of what we would like to see in a partner, where there's no judgment. They see you for what you see you. They're still dealing with their own baggage, but they're handling it as best as they can. And they're taking responsibility for their part, and they're not trying to, he's doing the best he can. He's helping out. He's showing through actions, not a lot of words. And I think in some ways, or the words that he said to Anne when she was growing up, it was like a little bit that it was a little bit of a playground thing. But at the same time, he was there for her. He was there for Maddie, his mom, who is struggling. He's fixing the things that were not fixed.
Well, it's interesting. I will confess I have been with my husband since we were 19. And he is way more articulate
Yeah.
than a lot of my heroes, but I have two now adult sons.
Yeah.
And so I know guys and I love guys.
Yeah.
And I don't think that gender is a substitute for character or destiny. Or I mean, I don't think you need to lock anybody into a stereotype. But when I was writing Joe, I was indeed writing from what I know.
Yeah.
And one of the tricky things for me to address, you talked about 54 people in your graduating class on the island. In Mackinac, the school is so small
Yeah.
that pretty much the high school is in class together. So ninth through 12th grade, they're on the same athletic teams, they're in the same classroom, maybe doing different things.
Yeah.
Even prom is pretty much 4 years of students and then students from the other local island high schools, because you don't have a party with
Yeah.
just who's on the island. I wanted there to be a difference between, I did not want to recreate the classroom rivalry that the original Anne Shirley has with Gilbert Blythe.
Yeah.
So if I weren't going to disappear the age difference between and Joe, I actually had to make Joe older enough
Yeah.
that he would not have been in her high school classes with her. And rightly or wrongly, that was a thing that happened. And I think it emphasizes the very different places they are at in their lives when they
Yeah.
reconnect at different points in the book
Yeah.
until she goes home this final time at the age of 25.
Yeah. All right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, he was a character I enjoyed writing very much. And when I say that Gilbert Blythe was my first best book boyfriend,
Yeah.
um, I want to say that despite my temporary fascination with Edward Rochester and Jane Eyre, I pretty much sort of went straight into Mr. Darcy
Yeah.
and Frederick Wentworth.
Yeah.
So that kind of goes back to your, these are guys who have baggage, but they're dealing with it as best they can, as opposed to, for example, Heathcliff
Yeah.
in Wuthering Heights, who's like digging up dead bodies and generally misbehaving. Yeah. So no, big fan of Gilbert.
Yeah. I'm likely to be a fan of Gilbert.
But when she first, so this is, if you have a chance,
Yes.
either in conjunction with reading the books or if you can rent the DVDs, there
Yeah.
is a 1985 miniseries from Canada
Yeah.
with, and it's so swoon worthy.
Yeah.
It's just the best ever with Megan Follows. You
Who knows? Maybe I'll do a Substack about like my experience trying to read the original text in the next couple weeks. I have a little bit of a break between podcast books, so maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll go down that rabbit hole and just go for it for
it's like watching
myself.
that original, also from the 1980s. You remember the
Yes.
Pride and Prejudice,
Yes.
right? This is like that.
Yeah.
This has got
Okay.
the, it's got the feels. It's
Yeah.
really got the feels. And I when you are tackling it, when you are reimagining a classic work, you want the feels.
Yeah.
You can't recreate the same characters because that book's been done. You can't recreate all the same situations because they've already been done really well. If they hadn't been done really well, you wouldn't remember them all these years later. But you want something of the, you want a little bit of the soul. Like I
Mhm.
said, the resilience, the imagination, the sort of this irrepressible joy that I think Anne brings. And then you want some of the feels. You want some of the,
Yeah.
like I said, the nostalgia, the romanticism, the determined. Yeah.
I'll be adding it. Don't worry. It's gonna be in the TBR in the TV watch TBR list. Basically we're just gonna bump it up and just have a usually Christmas time I tend to pick a series that has nothing to do, not for work, not for podcast, not for anything, and just dive into it, no questions asked. And I think maybe this is a year of Anne of Green Gables. We've been in trying times, so we might as well just get a little respite and go to Prince Edward Island and get to live in Anne's world.
I think when I was writing this book, it made me happy.
Yes.
And I want readers to read it and feel
Yeah.
happy
Yeah.
and reassured.
Yes. I
And
think I think because you dealt with some tough subjects that people who avoid, you did it with such care that allowed you to actually explore what happened on your own personal life. Because the readers who are reading this book have experienced the trauma. It may not look as acute as Anne's in her early 20s, but we all experience some sort of trauma with COVID and the experience. And I think you did it with such care that it didn't feel triggering. It didn't feel like I like going back to the world and content where it felt very like a place to reflect and a place to see how far you've come, the resiliency that you have had as a reader, as a person who experienced this world life changing event. And as experiences, a continuous experience, life changing events are happening every month at this point. We're on present times. It's getting to a point where, like, I just want to live in present times and long for the 80s and 90s where some of our scandals were sex scandal. Like it's a, and they were obviously shit that happened, but not to the level of quickness and 5 minutes of unprecedented times.
there is that sense sometimes where you are afraid to look at your phone in the morning because you don't want to see that. What fresh hell is this? And I think that's what really great books can do for us generally is give us a chance to either escape from or understand the world or both.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's one of the joys of a romance. And even though what I'm writing now is often, it straddles that women's fiction romance line. It so if somebody's looking for a straight, spicy
Yes.
book that's about a relationship between two people, then they're going to find something a little different in
Yeah.
Anne, because yes, her romantic relationships are really important, but so are her relationships with her mother, her relationship with her friend, her relationship with her teachers, her relationships at work. So you see the romantic relationship as part of her journey,
Yeah.
but not as a substitute for her journey.
Yeah.
But I still have a huge romantic element in my books
You do.
because I love romance. And I think one of the things that it delivers so well is that even when there is a dark moment or even when bad things are happening, you ought to be able to trust the writer to bring you home.
Yes.
And so I really appreciate it when you say, okay, you did that for me.
Yes.
It was safe. I was not triggered, because that's what you want to do. I want you to feel seen. I want you to feel understood. I want to make this connection with you, but I also don't want you to feel endangered. My job is to comfort and entertain, not to re traumatize you.
Yes, it wasn't a retraumatizing. I think it was a healing. And as I said before we start recording, I don't cry often, very little, but I did cry at the end of this book, and that's not a spoiler. Nothing bad happens. By the way, just want to say, there's nothing bad. It's a romance in that sense. It's a happily ever after, but because it was that way, the happily ever after culminated. It brought emotions that I haven't been allowed myself to experience, and those are happy emotions. And there sometimes you kind of have to have those happy tears, and so the way it really was with care, but also wrapped up in a way that just gave you hope. And in moments like this, moments, and we're June 25, and if I share the video, there's a Christmas tree behind me. And the reason why there's a Christmas tree is because I need hope. I need lights. I need beauty because the world's on fire and we're just powering through, and it's gonna be a time to be alive.
I think that, wow, I think again, we have not yet put up our tree, but we started putting it up early in 2020.
Mhm.
I do think that we need all the light we can get. And I think that not labeling people and finding a place where we are seen and understood,
Yeah,
refreshing our souls with a good book
yeah,
from time to time, are all ways that we can be our own little sparks, our own little lights, our own little, like we can wrap ourselves in Christmas lights and be our own little glow and a glow for others.
yeah, yeah. Well, all right. So thank you for having like a book club discussion about Anne Island. Thank you for engaging with me. I know I'm very lucky to have an opportunity to talk to authors, but sometimes when I find a book that speaks to me, it was a wonderful experience to talk to the author and have that conversation and have somebody to be like, hey, this is what I love about this element. So thank you for allowing me to gosh, but also to talk about the book in a engaging fashion in the sense of feeling good about it. Because
Well,
yeah,
I mentioned this before we started recording, but our first conversation was
yeah,
in the time of COVID. And you have always been so supportive of authors in generally and the bookish community
yeah.
that you feel like a safe place.
Thank you.
So if you are thanking me for being engaging, it's only because you're so willing to be engaged and you share so much of yourself. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. So for as always, we want to talk about book recommendations for readers. What book do you recommend for readers to pick up next?
Okay, well, right now, even though some of them are older, I am eating my way through Catherine Center's backlist. And some of that is because what we're talking about with comfort.
Yeah.
And I also think she's really good at doing what I said about sometimes being able to handle situations that people who are going through tough situations. And like another author who's great at this is Annabelle Monaghan.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I said her
It's
name correctly.
Monahan.
Monaghan. Thank you. But those are two authors who are really good at taking characters who are faced with difficult situations and not backing off of how difficult the situations are, but just still delivering a really satisfying experience. That sounds so dry when I say it. And instead, it's no, it's a cozy blanket to wrap yourself with at Christmas time, is what I should say. So I love those. Two books, a couple books I've read recently that sort of fall more on the women's fiction side are How to Read a Book by Monica Wood, which I absolutely, that may be the best book I read this year. Yes. It came out a couple of years ago, I guess, and I'm just like the slowest of the slow in finding things that other people know about. I basically depend on Katie James, hashtag and reading on Substack, and Kristen Higgins, who has become a dear friend and whom I adore and has blurbed my books, which gives me enormous joy. But they both recommended Monica Wood's How to Read a Book.
Yeah.
It blew me away because of the, again, people in really dramatically difficult situations, and there's a basic decency to the whole thing. And I loved the fact that her characters were of different ages, and you were able to really walk in their shoes and see through their eyes and root for them. So that's just a brilliant and lovely book. And nothing I recommend, by the way, is going to make you feel bad when you're done reading it.
Yeah.
I love Amy Popple. I think The Sweet Spot's probably my favorite of hers, but she had a book come out this year called Far and Away, which I read because I read everything Amy Popple writes. Yeah. She is super insightful and funny the way Jane Austen is funny, in the sense that she really skewers people in all their flaws and weaknesses, and they betray themselves in their dialogue all the time. And yet she does it with such humor and such compassion that you're rooting for them anyway.
Yeah.
And she does an ensemble book better than just about anybody. So she has this, it's like this, if I try to describe the plot, it's all woven together. It's like making something out of Legos, but it's going to run like a clock. I have no idea how she does it, and I don't care. I'm along for the ride. It's just great. So Amy Popple's Far and Away. I love the Barbara O'Neill's The Last Letter of Rachel Elworth, which again does this great job of taking two women who are diametrically different. These are two women who are forced together by circumstance and immediately judge each other. And yet, again, she takes you on this road of sort of compassion and understanding. And she's got this lush writing style. So if you're into smells and food and travel and art, Barbara's your girl. She delivers. I'm probably out of, but I have to recommend something that's upcoming. And that's because the last time I was here, I was in conversation with Sonali Dev, whom I adore and is a friend. And we were actually on a little writer's chat. And she has a new one out called How Cindy Got Her Groom Back. And again, characters with big, dramatic, life-changing problems, and she's talking about really important issues, but again doing it in a way that is really insightful and compassionate and funny. Yeah, I need all these books to kind of hold my hand right now, and I think there's a range there. But if you don't follow Kristen Higgins on Substack or Katie James, who wrote The Chicken Sisters,
Yes.
okay, and In Her Boots and Playing with, she wrote a lot of really good books, but follow writers should be following and writing, and everybody should be following hashtag M reading. She's got best book suggestions.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna follow them right away. So thank you for the recommendation. I'm always looking for new Substackers. I love this space because it feels much more quiet and allows you to express yourself in a place that doesn't feel so like trigger. Like you gotta follow it, you gotta follow it. Like it's more like a more warm comfort place to talk about books at any length of time or any way you want them to talk about it.
Well, it's interesting because I just moved my newsletter, which I might send out 3 times a year, maybe more
Yes.
often when I'm clustering around a release. But I moved it over there because I was following other writers. And also, frankly, as a platform, it was cheaper.
Yes.
What was interesting to me is that the format and the opportunity of people to respond just felt way more conversational to me.
Yes.
So instead of doing here's my new cover, buy my book, it became would you like this recipe? Do you want to know what I'm reading? So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm just digging into Substack now.
I just finished writing my Substack today, and I was like, it's a little bit of everything. The hodgepodge of how spending Thanksgiving.
I do not have to follow you on
I'll let you
Substack.
know.
This
But
is
yes,
awesome.
for listeners, I do have a Substack. We're recording this the week before Thanksgiving. This is going to air in January, but I was just writing my Thanksgiving listicle of like romance books to read, and it's all types of lists. And I was like, okay, well, also, I wanted to talk about share my friends' other recommendations. And what if you're feeling this mood? There's this person who's running this mood. If you want a mysteries, here's a couple of cozy mysteries. This cozy mysteries are just as great as romance. And so I think it's a place for a last for creativity, and it doesn't feel like you're so constricted of this is a splashiest thing that's gonna last forever. This feels like sustainable, like it's gonna be for a couple years. It's evergreen content. It's not like this one time thing and it's gonna be going away.
I find it's sort of easier to curate what I read
Yes.
because I am a writer. I
Yes.
have a presence on Facebook. I have a presence on
Yeah.
Instagram. I have a teeny tiny presence on Threads because I quit Twitter.
I love that we still call Twitter. I'm sorry. That's the only acceptable dead naming company that we can do. It's Twitter. It's not the other name.
But what I find when I go onto other platforms
Yeah.
is I'm just going to get hit. And if I feel like I'm being beaten to death by an algorithm.
Yes.
And when I go on Substack, I feel that I can pick what I'm reading. And if I like what I see, I can do a deep dive.
Yes.
And so I feel much more in control of what I'm
Yeah.
consuming. And I think right now, in addition to craving comfort, I crave control.
This is Laura of editing. I just want to let you know that the next piece is more of a recommendations. We just had a little bit of trying to combine a couple episodes together. So just enjoying. We got more recommendations. We got a little bit more discussion, and then we're just gonna go with the flow. But sorry for just a quick little intersection of me telling you. I'm trying to do my best. So, all right, enjoy.
Growing up in Puerto Rico,
Yes.
and if you are not familiar with Priscilla Oliveras, she's a wonderful writer living in New York who has set fantastic romances in her hometown, home island of Puerto Rico.
Yes.
And they're very full of the same kind of family dynamic that I like to write, but of course, in a very different cultural context. So, well worth exploring.
Yes, I love Priscilla. Actually, she's been a friend of the show. I love when it. This is a true story. I actually go and I pray an author to love, and then I do everything I can just to be able to do them in a non-sketchy way. I'm like, I have a podcast. I can talk about your books, and then I try to like I can sell more books for this because I really want to be like I see myself as a book evangelist, like someone who's a book recommender, not a reviewer. Someone who's I really want you to find the right book for you. It may not
Yeah.
be the same taste for me, but I want you to find the right book because I find reading to be such an escape and a place where you can get to learn other cultures, other people, other ways of living, and it helps you. It's just like Anne's issue with the book.
Wait, that was funny. We never got into. I keep wanting to talk about the classroom library and
Yes.
book censorship.
Yes. Which we can talk about it now. So we go back to Anne, and Anne has a book. She's a teacher. She has an underground library because she finds that books are a way to escape. My parents did not care what I read. and they care, and they'll be shocked of the stuff that I read. But in this day and age, people don't care whether children read, and they have their own values, their own way. And a lot of times, books may share different values, different ways of living, different identities, and books allow you to figure out who you are. And it uses books like with Haley with Anne of Green Gables, and then actually uses with, I think, what's the student's name? There's a student who was struggling,
Colin, who
Colin, and she shares The Perks of Being a Wallflower as a book to read and understand. But because the book has alcohol and sex and drugs, she gets
like
in,
the Bible or Shakespeare, as which
yes,
is an S.
yes, she gets in trouble. And then this is the era of parents and administration trying to appease the parent, not the student, and book banning for moral issues that we have issues with book banning. I live in the county that is the second most book banning county. I actually live in Tuscarora County. We're fighting. I a part of me longs to. I need the time, but I want to be in the school board. And no, I don't have children. And no, not plan to have children. But I feel like Moms of Liberty can be on the book board and school board. It can be in the school board and give a different opinion on how things run.
Well, I again was trying to avoid labels. I do think that parents and children should parents should help their children understand the world.
Yeah.
And that can include a discussion of books that the children are reading.
Yeah.
But when I talk about the importance of being understood, of feeling seen, which was so important to me growing up,
Yeah.
and is important to Anne,
Mm.
I think it's really important for young people now, especially as they're losing a sense of connection with their peers, the kids who were isolated from COVID. They're going to hear their parents' values. They're going to
Yeah.
absorb their parents' values. They're going to understand what their faith teaches, whatever, if the parents are doing their job. What I don't want is for children to feel alone.
Yeah.
And part of Anne's character, of course, is she's a little bit like Don Quixote. She is not going to back down from a fight or a threat. She is going to tilt a little bit at windmills. And
Yeah.
yes, there is an episode early in the book where she gets into trouble with the administration. I don't want to give away too much, but there is an example of that involving a Sharpie,
Yeah.
which I got from a teacher friend of mine in Florida.
Yeah.
So I think that honor teachers and what they're
Mhm.
doing. And I really feel for students who are looking to see themselves in the books that they read so that they
Yeah.
feel less alone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting time because we're getting books, especially in the YA space, we're getting books that are published more diversely, different identities, different genders, different race, culture experience and stuff. The people are afraid of books because what is it going to tell you? What is it going to teach you? I grew up in the literature, the teenage literature of the 80s and 90s, and it was pretty much homogenic white women. We got the Sweet Valley Girls, we got Babysitter's Club, but having the time where there is actually text and how that threads the ecosystem of white supremacy, the patriarchy, like all of the different capitalism. And it's because books actually allow you to see the world. It's like it's thinking of dystopian, of like reading dystopian and thinking, oh, this is never going to happen. And it's, maybe it's giving you something. It's like looking at Wicked is a good example of a movie that has a very political conversation, and you see it from you don't if you get it and you're like, holy crap, it opens the world of like how you interact with the world. And that's what books do too. That's the place where it does. It's a conversation.
Well, they're now doing studies where they talk about where they have demonstrated that people who read fiction
Mhm. Yeah.
develop empathy.
Yes.
And again, so it's not just that you don't feel alone in that moment as a reader. It's the idea that entering into how someone else sees things makes you more sensitive to other ways of thought. It doesn't remove your ability to think for yourself And I think the fear comes when you imagine that being exposed to another idea is going to make you somehow force your allegiance to that idea.
Yeah.
If that's the case, if the best idea you have to offer is so unattractive that being exposed to any other idea is going to send you over the edge, then maybe you should look at the attraction of what you're peddling. But
Yeah.
I think it's more important as we're hoping for more conversation between people with different backgrounds, with different belief systems. We don't have to agree, but I think that the more we understand, the better opportunities we have to work for solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anne Gallagher was ready to die on that hill.
She was. And I appreciate teachers who are advocating for literacy, but also understand in a sense of understanding the world, how you see it, and understanding your differences. I think an experience of Haley and experience of identifying with ADHD at an older level, older age is I was, but it's eye opening for them. But you need to have this conversation and talking about this experience. Like I have this thing, and you can identify. And books allow you to do that too. Books allow you to be like, I remember a lot of women who read the Kiss Quotient, and they realized I'm like, oh, maybe I'm in that spectrum because I was reading an experience that was similar to my folksy, and I didn't have to mask it. I think books allow you to see that, not just in like I see it with anxiety, I see it with PTSD, things that I have myself, and see my experience actually reflected on others and reflected and being able to see other options. Like book allowed me, I had to believe that every relationship was toxic because that's where I grew up. I grew up with really toxic, really angsty stuff and really full of red flags. And books, reading romance, I spent years like just reading romance and I realized I was like, oh no, there's other relationships, there's healthy relationships, and here's what it looks like, and here's what you can spot it, and here's what healthy communication is. I know a lot of judge romance talks about miscommunication, but there's some books that actually allow you to have communication and allow you to look at a different place and to see that it doesn't have to be toxic and full of inciting incidents. Like it can just be like really warm, comforting of seeing like your life can be just be that. That's what books do to you.
It was interesting because at one time I wrote a book called Mad Dog and Annie,
Yeah.
books I did for Harlequin back in the day. And they actually gave it out at a women's shelter because it was about a woman leaving a bed.
Yeah.
I wrote it back in, it was probably the early 2000s. I want to go back. I re-released it as an indie, but I want to go back and read it and go, did it do what I wanted? Is it what I want to say now? I do think that communication are important. Respect is important. And getting back to my first best book boyfriend, Gilbert Blythe. That's one of the reasons you're going to love the Anne series by Lucy Maud Montgomery is that he constantly is making choices to support Anne's dreams
Yeah.
and Anne's needs.
Yeah.
And that's what it should be about.
Thank you.
Look at us go off on another
We did.
fabulous tangent. We just do this all night.
We did. Virginia, tell us where you can find you online. Tell us all the places.
Oh, okay. Well, my website's virginiakantra.com. I'm on Facebook as Virginia Kantra. I'm on Instagram as at Virginia Kantra. And there you can sign up for my Substack.
Thank you, Virginia, for being on the show.
Laura, it's always such a delight to chat with you.
Thanks for listening to the What to Read Next. For more book lists, cozy reads, and library tips, visit the whattoreadnextblog.com. Your next great read might be waiting there.